Right, hello again. It's been a busy week as per usual at the Mazuma. So welcome to the catch-up here on ShrimpNet with the Chuckle Brothers. That's myself and Joel, and we have, as usual, resumed with two guests this week. From the returning king of the full kit in the boardroom, we have the lovely James Wakefield showing us a map of water and the globe behind him. Welcome along, James.
Thank you very much indeed, Freez.
And we are also joined by the recently appointed media manager. Apparently they are like buses. They come, we've never had one until 18 months ago, and we're on our third one. Goodness knows how long he's going to last, but good luck and welcome to Dale Pryde-MacDonald. Hello, Dale.
Thank you, guys. You've kept my lifespan very short there, but thank you.
Hey, you never know. You never know. You just never know, do you? We thought Harry would be here forever, and he wasn't. And then before that, we thought it's just like, oh, don't go there. So there you go. Right, where do we start? The usual thing. We go to last Saturday's game, Peterborough, the posh at home. I'd ideally like to gloss over this one because the portents were not good for the simple fact that when we start a game with everybody saying, "Hey, we've gone 9 unbeaten at home," you know that it's going to be a tough game, and it proved, Joel, didn't it?
Yeah, you've just given me a quick, actually, little memory. I remember when in the promotion season we played Colchester away. The League Two official account did a tweet about how Colchester are unbeaten all season. I remember that below all their fans are just go, "No, why have you done this?" And lo and behold, we went and beat Colchester. But yeah, in terms of the game against Posh on Saturday, I thought I wasn't at the game. I wasn't able to make the game. The train issues stopped me from being able to get up. But I watched it back on Sunday, and it wasn't great. But I don't think it was quite as bad as got made out. I remember watching it back and thinking it was weird. We were kind of putting some nice passes together. We were playing through a little bit of pressure, maybe the first line of Peterborough's press. But then we just make a really daft error. And that wasn't really contained to any player in particular. It just seemed to be throughout the whole team. We put a couple of nice little passes together, and then there'd be somebody would get a first touch stuck under their foot. Somebody would hit an easy ball into touch. It was just really, really bizarre. I guess, this is how not just football, but life works. Sometimes you all turn up and you just have a bit of a stinker when you're not quite at it. And against other teams, we might get away with it, but against Peterborough, the quality that they have, they were able to punish us. But at the same time, I think they did show quality in order to look to capitalise on those errors. At the same time, they were pretty lucky, the goals. Obviously, the first one,
deflected.
I think Connor's catching that if it doesn't get deflected. Second one, obviously, Connor, it's gone through his legs. That's that's rarely ever going to happen.
You've watched it again. I'm sure you watched it again as well, James. Never a free kick.
Oh yeah, that's a good point actually. Yeah, never
a free kick. He won the ball, and their lad ran into him. A free kick.
Ridiculous. And then the third one, we've given the ball away in midfield a bit daftly, and they've gone up and they've created a bit of space. But again, it's a deflection. I think until the deflection, I think Ripley's getting a foot to that. So yeah, it's frustrating. I think heads went a little bit in the first half. I remember thinking our press got quite ragged. It was kind of a couple of people were going, and then nobody else was really stepping up. And I remember it looked like Peterborough had quite an easy time playing through it. Second half, I thought we upped it a bit. I could see that our forwards were pressing a bit harder. Midfielders were joining him. Jacob Ado was coming past the halfway line to kind of back that all up. Because if just a couple of people go, then it leaves space in midfield, and that's what makes it easy for Peterborough to play through. So you kind of need more people to commit, and that's what we did. We carried a couple of decent little chances. They've not quite gone in, but I think you've got to say that the damage was done in the first half, and it's disappointing. I'm not quite sure where all the errors kind of came from, but that just happens sometimes, and unfortunately it happened against the team that were able to put us to the sword. But as we saw, I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, we managed to move on and grind out a result on Tuesday.
Sometimes, James, as we have said, when we've been in a situation where we've won this season, you have a game where everything you hit goes in. And I think that sort of kind of happened for them. They played pretty well. They looked up for it. They looked at it. And I agree absolutely wholeheartedly with everything Joel said there. at the time, at halftime, I said our passing was so poor at times. We were making silly little mistakes, and all they had to do was rush at us. And instead of trying to beat a man or just throw a dummy, we were panicking and we were bad touch, and it went. And as we've said, yes, 2 deflections and a free kick that wasn't. And unfortunately, Connor let that one through. It was just a bad day at the office. And sometimes you just got to say, collectively, I think the only person who was on it was Faz, really. I think Faz was absolutely fantastic. Did a couple of fantastic tackles, did okay. Had a chance from the corner, which obviously you've touched on there, where he was a little unlucky. It should maybe have scored. But so when it comes down to it, James, it's an easy one to write off. But at the time, social media went a bit sort of scatty with like, oh, Derek out, etc., 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 which I think was, I can understand why people are annoyed when you pay good money, but it was a bit of an overreaction for me.
I don't know whether I want to draw the ire of everybody by expressing my true opinion here.
Go on. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, I got quite annoyed afterwards. I was gonna reply, and then I thought it doesn't work in the immediate aftermath of it. I think Joel's being a bit diplomatic. I think that the reality is that you only notice a mistake when it leads to a goal. You don't notice a mistake when it doesn't. And I think there was a lot of outcome bias displayed on Saturday. And I completely respect everybody having their opinion on a football match, and that is the right of all football fans. But I thought some of the comments made after the game were just wholly unfair. The idea that some people weren't trying was just not true. We won every single dual stat across the board, on the ground, in the air. We beat Peterborough for the 50-50s, all of them across the board. And we should have scored a goal, and they shouldn't have scored 3. And it was 2 deflections and a free kick that was filled by Connor, and it shouldn't have been a free kick. Now, on any other day, that's 1-1. That is a 1-1 game. So I don't care if I draw the ire of fans. I would ask them to go back and watch it, or ask their mates who don't support Morecambe to watch it and tell them what they see. Because what occurred on Saturday was a bit of outcome bias and annoyance that an unbeaten run had gone, and losing 3-0 at home is never enjoyable.
No.
But it was never a 3-0 loss on performance. And in particular, the people who had a go at the people's effort and
Yeah.
sort of trying. It's not true. We won every single 50-50. Every 50-50 stat was in Morecambe's favour. We just conceded 3 silly goals.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I was like I say, you're in a situation now where we are in the league, and every point is precious. And we'd said last week that we would hopefully take 4 points from those 2 games over the coming 7 days. And we're fortunate enough now to look back and say we took 3 points from the Port Vale game, which I shall segue into now because it's a lot more positive. But and Joel's gone on record and said this, and I think he's exactly right in the fact that watching the game, I don't think the first half was that much different to the Peterborough game, other than it was 0-0 at half time, was it, Joel?
Yep, I'd go as far as to say it was probably worse. I just remember sitting in the stands and thinking, I know it looks like we haven't played football for about 2 months, but halves like that happen, and we were against a Port Vale side who are a little bit more limited than Peterborough. They've just Peterborough have a bit of an outside chance to play us. I think it's a bit of a distant chance, but they've got an outside chance. Port Vale, they hit 40 points on Saturday. They're coasting at the moment. They're not been in great form. They're coasting. They didn't really do much. I think they had a bit of a tasty spell in the first 10 minutes that we did relatively well to deal with. But I remember just thinking, our passes weren't sticking. Players were I think it was kind of summed up when Crowley and Cole and Stockton, they kind of, I think Cole took a touch and then they kind of crossed over each other and they left the ball for each other and ran in different directions. And I think that was just kind of
Keystone Cops.
Yeah, it was just kind of representation of that half. But I do remember thinking last 5 minutes of that half, we looked like we were gelling quite nicely and it was kind of coming together a bit. Second half, we come out, switch it on for 10 minutes and we get a goal. I mean, arguably, look at the chances that the 2 main chances we had, it should have been Michael Mellon scoring the goal rather than Adam Mayer. But, at the end of the day, just a little whirl in Michael Mellon. I think it was tough for him coming in at right wing. I think he was out of position, and then fortunately he did get moved to centre forward, but it was a bit of a tricky time, and it's a shame he's missed that chance because that would have been good for his confidence. But more will come, and hopefully be able to tuck him away because he has shown some good talent in the first brief appearances we've seen from him. But yeah, Adam Mayer's done brilliantly to get that goal, and then we've just dug it out. There was a couple of little hairy moments in the 10 minutes after we scored, I thought, but from there, I thought we handled the game pretty well. Yeah, I think if that game had been a draw, I don't think we could have had many complaints. And if the Peterborough game had been a draw, I don't think Peterborough could have had many complaints. At the end of the day, we've come out with the win against Port Vale, and I think it's funny how football works sometimes, and this is how it goes. I think a couple of players deserve a bit of a shout out after the Port Vale game. I think Love was really, really good. He went in, he was going in aggressively to some duels really, really well and getting on the right side of them. Again, Rawson was absolutely brilliant. He's had a really, really good run of form, just getting his body on the line. I thought Sean Weir, while it wasn't things weren't quite happening in terms of attacking fluency and stuff, and that was the same throughout the whole team. When it's not quite, I think what they showed was really good. That when it's not quite working with the nice passing and everything, they got stuck in. Shaw was just everywhere, lobbing himself in front of things, in front of the defence. The reason Garrity misses that chance when Connor saves it is because Jensen is hammering back at him and not letting him have time to take the shot. Going forward, Adam Mayer, brilliant again. And Nahua, he was fantastic, I thought. The way he carries the ball and holds on to it, buys you a little bit of time at the pitch, carries you a few meters, he'll win a free kick, drifts around across the front line, links up play here and there. I think it's a bit of an underrated skill. Some of these skills he has are quite underrated. And he got a bit of grief, I remember, after the Peterborough game. I don't think he was that bad at the Peterborough game. I thought he was okay and got a bit unfairly targeted. And then he's come out and he's had a really strong performance against Port Vale, which is good to see. So yeah, it's good to see some kind of performances step up a little bit, especially in that second half. And you know what? Sometimes you do need to win ugly. Sometimes you're not going to turn up and play as well as you do against Bristol, as we did against Bristol Rovers, etc. And that's what we've done. And that's really, really pleasing to see that we've got enough about us as a side to be able to kind of grind out a result. Because while Port Vale wouldn't play that well, they're a tough side. They're gritty. They grind out results as well. And we managed to do that on Tuesday night. And hopefully it just gives a little bit of confidence back into the team, to the players, because they looked a little bit unsure of themselves making the errors. So hopefully they've got a bit of that belief back that they had against Bristol Rovers, because they're all fantastic players and they've got it in them to play really good football. It's just sometimes maybe you lose your way over a couple of games, but hopefully this win will give them a bit of confidence.
And James, the portents were there. The game on Boxing Day was almost exactly the same sort of game, where it was two sides. I actually thought the game on Tuesday night was probably a slightly better game than the one on Boxing Day, but you always got that feeling that one goal would separate them, just like the one on Boxing Day, and it's just the reverse of the scoreline, wasn't it?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's probably a good analysis. It was gritty. Port Vale will have gone away counting themselves unlucky, but we scored a good goal, and it comes down to that. I can't make the comments about Peterborough and claim that it was a classic performance, and we should have scored 5 on Tuesday night, because we should. But it was a good goal from Adam Mayer, and that won it. And it was what I think also made a big difference is with the last sort of 15-20 minutes, Port Vale are coming forwards. That atmosphere came alive again in the Mazuma, and that does make a hell of a difference. Yep. When your back's against the wall and you're trying to protect 3 points. And I think that was really, really in evidence. I think that's all I'll say for every single home and away game for the rest of the season. I mean, we're taking what is effectively a home crowd to Fleetwood this weekend. We have got to get behind the players and make sure they feel like they've got that 12th man, because it does make a huge difference. And we aren't a team with huge resources, so let's put a 12th man in the stadium every time. But yeah, it was a good result on Tuesday night. If not, a performance that deserves a lot more than the one goal.
And not a bad starting week for you, Dale. You turn up, and we get a 1-0 win. All right, it was a bit, they hit the bar and had a couple of chances. Connor made a couple of good saves, I thought, as well. I think Connor deserves a mention because he made a couple of pretty decent saves. But as you said, the defence played pretty well, closed them down. But what were your first impressions there, Dale?
I probably viewed it a wee bit slightly differently to James and Joel. I thought the first 20, 25 minutes was absolutely frenetic. I don't think either team really impacted the other. If I'm being honest, I felt it was a wee bit blow for blow. I felt, and I said this after the game, I felt Morecambe were a final pass or a clean pass away on 4 or 5 occasions from having a right good opportunity in on goal. And it was probably that one where if you can get that little bit of finesse pass in the final third, then that final pass on that 4 or 5 occasions, you've then got a sight of goal. I also disagree that I think Port Vale can feel hard done by to go away with nothing, because I felt they had a fair chunk of the possession without really having 9 or 10 clear-cut opportunities at goal. I felt they had 4 or 5, but I didn't think that they really had a big dig on the target. I felt the Morecambe defence did brilliant, especially in the last 10-15 minutes when it's long ball central. But I'm a great believer in simplifying it and saying that to be a Morecambe in League One, the same as at times it was to be a Ross County in the Premier League, it's about defending your box and being effective in the opposition's box. And that's what I felt Morecambe were on Tuesday night. I really enjoyed the game, I have to say that. It was shades of seeing the whites of players' eyes from the stand, because you could see that both players were just going hammer and tong for 90 minutes and both teams wanted to win a game of football. But I don't think we can discredit the part that Morecambe play in the game. And I also just want to loop that back to the Peterborough game on Saturday, because I watched the highlights of the Peterborough game, and having been in relegation battles with Ross County, you can have those days where things just go completely against you, not for the want of trying, and you come away from a game. I've been involved in games where you come away having played brilliantly and played the opposition off the park, but you take nothing from the game because they've had 3 really fortuitous goals or 3 fortuitous strikes that on another given day either go wide or are saved. So I'm probably trying to look at it a wee bit more glass half full, if I'm being honest. And I certainly feel coming away from the game on Tuesday night, I felt a real buzz, because I think there's enough there to be really, really excited about. Especially, and a point I made to Derek after the game was, you look at the average age and the age of some of what you call the key players in that Morecambe squad. They're doing brilliant in League One, because League One's a hard shift to go and ply your trade at such a young age. You look at the spine of the team. The spine of the team's really, really young. And again, I think that gives supporters so much to be excited about, because you're then looking at it, and Morecambe fans won't want to hear me say this, but I think you look at Adam Mayer now as one of your biggest sellable assets at the football club, and you're saying, he's somebody that could go on and have a right good career, but has such a vital part to play at this football club. And I think that, coming in as head of media and communications, day 2 in the role, and watching that game, I'm sitting there thinking that this is a media dream, because you've got a young squad that are going out there and proving themselves against some big clubs in this division, and right now proving themselves to be worthy of being at this level.
What I love about that is that I've just been out optimisted by our new head of media and communications. So fantastic. Dale, the mantle is yours.
Yeah, me and James
and I will love to hear you.
Me and James get pelters for being too optimistic, but yes.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about that is Dale's coming at it with fresh eyes, isn't he? He's coming at it with fresh eyes from Scotland. And all of a sudden, he sees the game, he watches the Peterborough highlights, and you've seen it and thought, well, actually, yeah, there's quite a bit going on here. And there is. I suppose we get quite jaundiced because we've been watching it, this team sort of pull together, and then all the signings in January, and we're still sort of I'm not taking Adam Mayer for granted, not at all. He came on came on at Sheffield Wednesday and did really, really well, you know, and played pretty well Saturday and did okay, you know, did really well, obviously scoring that goal the other night. And for 18, his decision making.
He's not even 18 yet. He's 17. Doesn't turn 18 till August.
I know he's coming up, but his decision making is absolutely superb. And sometimes, and I've said this before on the podcast, sometimes that's what. And I always hark back to Tom Barkhuizen, who's had a great career, now finishes himself off at Derby, but earning decent money. We signed Tom as a fullback from Blackpool, and he was quick. He had 2 good feet. He was brilliant in the air. He could trap it from anywhere, and he could finish. And when Preston signed him, obviously I was working in Preston at the time, and people said to me, "What's he like?" I said, "He needs coaching, his decision making, because he gives it when he should take it and dribbles when he should give it." And I said, once you've coached that into him, he'll be brilliant. And that's exactly what Adam Mayer's got. He's got that decision making already. I've seen him make probably 2 mistakes in any game. Well, in the entirety of his games, he makes the right decisions, and you cannot coach that. You've got to coach it and get old and get used to doing it, and then you've got to be reminded. And I know that, you know, Tom won't mind me saying that. And Gary Thompson was another one from our old days. He went on to have a fine career, getting into the Championship with Scunthorpe and scoring at Tottenham and blah, blah, blah for Bradford City and getting to Wembley. He had a great career. But Tom will be the first to tell you that he only started to drop with him when he was about mid-20s. Well, as you've said, James, Adam Mayer, 17. So you're quite right, Dale. He will be a very, very saleable asset. And we've said this from the start. There are people already looking at him. And, you know, I can't blame him because it's the right thing to do.
Can I just jump in on that one? I'm going to almost... when you're saying about the glass half full bit there, and it all relates in for me, I was in a position at the start of last season when we were up at Ross County and Malky Mackay had come in as manager, big turnover of players, and you're trying to find a new way of playing and a new way of adapting. And we went the first 10 games in the league without a victory. And I think the most important part in football is such an impulsive place to be at times, and it's a very, very intense place to be at times. And I think the more that you can keep the calm and breathe, it is the word I would use, the more you can breathe, I think that you then begin to see the shoots, because again, you're rooted to the bottom of the table after 10 games. We then went on and finished in the top 6 in the league, and we're a point away from getting into European competition. So again, it just shows how fickle football is. And when you're touching on the Adam Mayer one, we had a young boy at Ross County when I walked through the door called Ross Stewart, who we sold on to Sunderland. And Ross Stewart was somebody, right, he didn't come through the Ross County Academy, but these players need a platform. They need a club where they feel loved, that they can go out and deliver, and then you move them on. And that is the cycle of football, you know. So I think with the Adam Mayer one, the bit that took me back as well with him was when he came to do his post-match press conference as well. And he's a really grounded, humble young man. And again, during my time in football, I've been involved in football for 14 years, 15 years. I've met young people that aren't that humble and that grounded. And I was taken aback by how well he spoke, how well he conducted himself. And I know he's probably comfortable because he knows the guys on the other side of the microphones, but I still think that plays a huge part in your makeup and your character.
I agree with that, and you know, the shades of Carlos in the way that he plays, and yet Carlos wasn't playing like that at 17. Didn't have that power. He looked a bit like a baby deer on ice at times, at that age. But Adam Mayer looks like an adult. He plays like an adult, and he sounds like an adult. So yeah, let's not hex him. It's a hell of a start for a young player.
I'll just pick you on one thing, Dale, that you said. I know it was only your second day, but you said, yeah, Morecambe 3 times. You are allowed to say we now.
I'm trying to get used to that. I got a row at Ross County in my last week for calling it Ross County and not saying we are us at Ross County. So I'm still in that middle ground to try to find out where I sit right now.
I get that, but I thought now's the time. You're nearly at the end of your first week. Next Monday, it's we. Just want to talk about any updates on Cole, James, because obviously worryingly he came off, but even more worryingly we actually played better without him for about 20 minutes. But I'm segueing into the sort of next segment. We're going to talk about Fleetwood, and obviously the memories come flooding back from Highbury last season when we scored in the 92nd minute from the halfway line, and that was Cole. So, is there any news on Cole?
I have genuinely not asked, and I'm trying very hard to behave myself and not meddle in Derek and send him too many messages. So Dale might know more than I do, but I haven't asked. I genuinely haven't asked because I'm trying to leave Derek to get on with his job.
I imagine it's a top secret thing. And
the thing is, I've seen a couple of people this week, and they said, "Oh, what's happening with Cole?" I said, "I don't know. I'll ask." Feel free to answer it as you want. Keep your nose clean.
If I knew, I wouldn't say.
We've super glued his leg back on. He should be all right for a week Saturday. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I've asked. Dale?
To be fair, I've struggled to get out of the confines of this office today, so I couldn't say.
Are you still locked in there?
I'm still locked in the office right now. Yeah, I was in here at 7 o'clock this morning. I'm still here at 8:30 at night. So we're doing well.
We're switching lights off when you switch your Wi-Fi off soon.
I know.
Just a quick word on a quick word on Cole, and just it did seem to pick up a little bit after. I think, but with Cole, I think it looked like he was carrying that injury for about 10 or 15 minutes before he went off. So there was a few loose touches, and I think he was probably carrying that injury. And then also, I think we started with Mellon on the right wing, and I see the reasons why we did that. We want to give him a bit of a shot on the side. Cole's playing centre forward, and I think it gives that option. He's got that kind of striker's nose, hasn't he, Mellon? So we'll come a little bit close to Cole if we go direct. Obviously, it hasn't quite worked out because you've got defensive responsibilities on the wing, and when you're a 19-year-old striker who's never played on the wing, it's going to be difficult covering those. So I think that's probably why things worked out a bit better when Mellon went central, more just because Cole was carrying an injury. Mellon went into a position he's more familiar in, and then obviously we get Nahua in on the right wing, who is familiar as a right winger, and he kind of knows the places to stand in and all that kind of boring stuff.
That was very technical. He knows the places to stand. Like, oh, bus stop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Bus stop, edge of the box, a cross might come in. Yeah, I like it. So we are at Highbury on Saturday. Fantastic 1100 sellout, and it's full of social media's been full of people since about Wednesday saying, anybody get the spare tickets? Because I didn't think it'd sell out. And it's like, well, you should have bought one while you could. And I do feel sorry for people because there are people there who are like, I'm a season ticket holder, I haven't missed an away game yet. No, it's like, oops, well, you've got to buy them when you can get them. But great that we're taking the 1100 there, Joel.
No, yeah, it's going to be really good. I think like James has alluded to already, it's kind of, we could make it a little bit like a kind of a full home support going. And I was speaking to somebody earlier today, and it was Gabe Sutton actually, and he was saying, once you've got 1,100 people crammed into that away end, when it's full, it just full stands are just so much louder than kind of half 80. So being crammed into there, it's going to really help. We can really get behind it. I think already right. Those last kind of 20 minutes against Port Vale, the fans really picked up. And it did feel, I remember sitting in the stand and just thinking, yeah, there's a bit of an energy that's kind of, it feels like it's getting behind the players, and hopefully we can do the same against Fleetwood on Saturday.
And the home game, not the most exciting game in the world, James, but we held our own. But they looked quite a decent side. They kept it really, really well, didn't they? And I know they've drawn a lot of games, but they looked a decent side under Scott Brown, Fleetwood. Yeah,
they do, and they've spent a lot as well. So it's not a small budget team anymore. And so, yeah, I think under Scott Brown, with the money they spent, they're a decent team. They're not a team we can't beat, though.
Yeah, Jaden Stockley and Jack Marriott arriving in the January transfer window to accompany our prodigal son in the wonderful scorer of the Wembley penalty. They've got some danger up front there. It's going to be a challenge, isn't it? Because thankfully they did us a favour by beating Cambridge late on, which was a good result for us, wasn't it?
Yeah, they did. And did you see the chance that Cambridge missed?
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. Wow.
And the header, he hit the bar with the header as well. Well, actually, no, he hit the kind of
cross,
the cross section of the post and bar about 10 minutes before Fleetwood got that winner as well. So It was
Sickening.
I
Almost
find myself torn in games like that because I like Cambridge, who are a good club, and I like Accrington, for example, from a club perspective. But you do find yourself, for like against every like being in your body, willing Fleetwood to win against Cambridge, which is wrong but right in the same breath.
But
I like Accrington as well, as you found out when I'm wearing this top that my wife bought me for my birthday. And I suddenly realised when I'm sat looking at myself on here thinking, oh my God, it looks like an Accrington shirt. It's not. There's no badge. Look, there's no badge. It's just Adidas.
quick word, and by the way, on Carlos at Fleetwood, I did notice he's got 3 yellow cards in his last 3 games. So I wonder if he's trying to get a suspension to not play against us. But I've checked that he is suspended, sadly, so we may have to face him.
I'm coming clean now. I'm coming clean in the fact that I went to buy tickets for everybody else, and I am not going on Saturday because something's come up. Family always comes first, as you know, and we've got the grandkids because we're letting family go for a nice. I can't say too much because they quite often listen to the podcast and it's a surprise, but they're going somewhere on Saturday, so we're looking after the kids. And another mate of mine rang me and said, "Oh," I said, "Do you want a ticket?" And he said, No, I'm not going." And I said, "Why are you not going?" And he went, "I don't think I can sully the memory of Cole's goal last year. It's never going to get better than that." And said, "So I'm not going to Fleetwood ever again." And I'm like, that's a big claim, that. I said, "If we play him next season and we're going for promotion and it's the last game of the season," he went, "Yeah, I might review it then." But yeah, it was a fantastic memory last season. Again, we didn't quite sell out, but we took about 1,000 to Fleetwood last season. And it was, I think Callum Jones scored with a free kick, didn't he? It was his only goal for Morecambe. And then obviously they equalised, and then they had quite a few chances. I know Anthony O'Connor cleared off the line and played pretty well on the day. And then we come to the 92nd minute, and Cole scores that goal, and Barry Bannon wins goal of the season. What's that about? Come on.
That by the way, this just shows how ludicrous some of the EFL goal. That goal wasn't even in the shortlist for the top 3.
No.
It was his Wimbledon goal that was in the shortlist because they did it off goal, what had been voted goal of the month, and Ipswich fans had been weird and kind of all basically spammed the vote and voted for. Ultimately, I mean, it was a very lovely.
It was a good goal.
It was a very lovely chip from, I can't remember what he's called. I think it's at Stoner anyway. But it was a very lovely chip. But there was obviously absolutely not a patch on Stockton's goal. But they all kind of spammed the EFL Twitter account, and
it's funny.
Yeah,
not
that I'm still annoyed about it.
No. I'm with you on that one because I had an argument with I was on that thread on Twitter, and 2 Ipswich fans were arguing with me saying, well, keeper was miles off his line. It was an easy goal, and the Ipswich lad, I went, the keeper was on the penalty spot. It was just a chip. For yours, what are you talking about? And they wouldn't accept it, so we had to agree to disagree in the end.
But anybody who criticizes that goal has clearly never tried to take anything near a goal kick in football.
No,
it's really hard to kick a ball that far, like with that much power. So, yeah. Anyway,
so,
I'll let it go.
I don't expect the same. Obviously, you'd be foolish to expect the same, but we do need the points. So, this is going to be fun and games for you. A Lancashire derby is your first away game, Dale.
I'm really looking forward to it, I have to say. I think, obviously, you always watch Scottish managers from afar and Scottish players from afar when they move out of Scotland. The interesting one for me is the Scott Brown one, because Scott, his last season at Celtic as a player, wasn't great. The Celtic weren't in a great place before Ange Postecoglou came in. In fact, Ross County, had beaten them on 2 occasions.
He said we. I like that. That's good. That's good. That's history. That's good.
And then obviously he left. He left Celtic to go to Aberdeen as assistant manager to Stephen Glass. That was a really challenging time, and I think Scott would have learned a lot from that period. And I think he's probably taken a lot of that learnings into his management at Fleetwood. But again, I have to agree with James. I think he's probably had a little bit more resource available than he may have expected when he walked through the door on day one. You know, I look at the calibre of the player he's been able to bring into the football club, and you're going, it's not really a bad situation to be in. And, you know, equal to that, I think it's set up to be a great game in terms of, I think there's a lot at stake for both clubs. You know, in terms of the bragging rights, first of all. But I also think the individual battles as well. I always think in the derby, players want to come away from it winning their individual battles. And I just think it's so teed up to be a really, really good game. I think the bit that you've nailed in the head is the travelling support on Saturday is going to be absolutely massive. And I think it's always, you know, every one of us on this podcast are football fans, and there's nothing better than seeing your team having a full backing away from home. It makes for a great day out, whether you're 8 years old or 80 years old. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think the dynamic of the game will be probably not too dissimilar from Tuesday night. Probably, I think the frenetic first 20-25 minutes might last a wee bit longer. But for me, I just look at it and I think, you know, this is, if you can't get G'd up and excited for this, you shouldn't be watching football.
I did a bit of daft research, which is my want to do, and March the 27th, 1989 was a bank holiday Monday. We played Fleetwood at Highbury. We won 2-1. The crowd was 272. And there was about 40, 50 from Morecambe, because I was there. That's how far both clubs have come. And that tells you a lot, because it's 1989. Yes, I know. How old were you? Yeah, don't tell me, Joel, you weren't born. I know. But yeah, I was
minus 8 years old.
I was alive. James, you know who was in that team. 1989, we had Ian Kane, Steve.
It had to be Ian Kane. It won't have been
exactly.
Yeah.
So this is your, when you were a young person, it's your era. It was my era as well. Obviously, you know, I was at the time I was in my late mid 20s. And we decided to go on ad hoc on the Monday, went to tootle around Blackpool and then went to the game. And I just looked it up. We won 2-1. 270 odd was the crowd. And I'm thinking, we're taking 1,100. That is, and yes, it's easy to say, you know, they have been well funded. Mr. Pilly's done the right thing by them, you know, and he's always funded them properly. They've always been better funded. I remember when they came and did us 4-0 at the Globe, as it was then, when they had Big John Parkin playing, and they were up for promotion as usual, and we finished like 4th, 5th from bottom of League Two, and they brought 600 or 700 then. They've never brought anything like that since, because they were on a roll then, just a bit like the Wrexham thing at the moment. You know, they were taking hundreds and hundreds everywhere and beating everybody out of sight. And obviously they've settled in League One. They're an established League One club now. I'd love to be in their situation with their budget, but it's something that we can only aspire to. But when I look back at where both teams have come from, and Accrington's exactly the same. And yes, Lancashire rivals, but I don't hate Accrington and I don't hate Fleetwood. I'd like to beat them on Saturday because I think we need the points, but I've got the ultimate respect for them as a club, because they've done what we've done, and Accrington have done. We've done what Accrington have done, and I think there's a lot of common ground there, James, isn't there?
Yeah, there is a fair amount of common ground. I think there's probably a bit more common ground between us and Aki, just because we're trying to run a sustainable club, and we're trying to operate within our means, which is by no means easy, given the cost of living crisis and the bills rising, and the fact that the football pyramid without an independent regulator is a bit of a gamble. But still, respect to Fleetwood. Even with money being pumped in, it's not easy being a small club in League One at this level. But yeah, there's a bit of a difference between Morecambe and Aki in one category and Fleetwood in another. You know, Morecambe and Accrington haven't put money into player budgets beyond what they felt they could afford at the beginning of each season, and that to me is worth more than bought success or bought points. I won't, though, criticise Fleetwood, because it's damn sight more difficult being Fleetwood in League One than it is being a much bigger club. So credit to all small clubs that make it in League One.
And that segues me very nicely into my next topic, which you know is obviously the news that's come out over the last sort of 24 hours with the government confirming the appointment of a regulator for football, which obviously there's been a massive up in arms from, as you'd expect, from the Premier League, because it does mention in one of the things they want to do, they want to make sure that the money's shared out fairly. Doesn't say evenly, it says fairly. And so obviously the Premier League representatives are all up in arms. They're like, we don't need a regulator. They probably don't. But the one fact that came out, which I double checked and was right, that since the formation of the Premier League in 1992, 64 clubs have gone into administration. 64 clubs have gone into administration. You cannot tell me that the game's run correctly if 64 clubs have gone into receivership. That is not right. So it's obviously the right time for it, James, and it's something that you're obviously very pleased about.
Yeah, I'm thrilled about it. I think it's overdue. And to be honest, when Mrs. Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng came into government, I was genuinely fearful it was going to get chucked out, because it was precisely the sort of thing that they weren't in any way in favour of. So I'm quite pleased about that turnaround as well, because this has come back onto the agenda and is now looking like it's going to come into place, which is fantastic. A couple of other random stats for you, but back at the formation of the Premier League. The Premier League was obviously the first division, as was, that became the Premier League. Obviously got the lion's share of the money. But at that point, it was in the 50s. I think it was 57%. Now it's 83% of the money goes into the Premier League. And if you go and drop down into League Two, so Division 4, 1.4% of the money in the pyramid goes to clubs in Division 4, like in League Two. That's just a nonsense. So it's high time this happened. I'm not too bothered about how it affects the clubs at the very top of the game, because they could share out a very tiny amount of their income and make the rest of the pyramid sustainable, and it wouldn't make any difference to their competitiveness or how they can compete for players in Europe, because they're so far ahead of Spain and Germany and Italy that they could all give a percentage away and the rest of the pyramid will be more secure. But it is high time this happened. And the best thing about this is there's loads of aims in this review. And in the implementation of a regulator. But the two fundamental aims, the first is club sustainability, which is something that the likes of us and Aki and Cambridge have been banging on about in our own little ways for years. And the second one is systemic stability. So the pyramid itself being a stable system. Now, they are two massively laudable goals. You can't argue with those. And then the third one's also a wonderful one. It's club heritage. So if all of the other things that it encompasses, and it does encompass a huge amount of stuff, but if they achieve those three things, club sustainability, systemic stability, and club heritage, the game's a better one. It's just a better game of football.
I agree, and a couple of things I want to touch on. Obviously, the main point that's really, really sort of paramount to us, obviously, preventing repeat of financial failings seen at clubs. Well, obviously Bury and Macclesfield, we're all fully aware of what happened there, and it's obviously and introducing the most stringent owner director test to protect clubs and fans. Now that is particularly pertinent with the situation that we're going through, Joel, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we could probably allude to the statement that the EFL put out regarding ourselves on Friday. I know some people I think the first paragraph from it does come across a bit jarring, but I think the overall thing that we can take from the statement is that what they're trying to say is that they are taking this seriously and that they're not going to let this slide without doing some proper due diligence. And that overall for me is a positive with what they've come out and said. And then like we're talking about now with the independent regulator, any more diligence and any more kind of enforcement of making sure that clubs don't get in situations like Bury have been when the due diligence hasn't been done and somebody with obviously no money has gotten through and owned the club. I think that the more layers of protection that can be provided for clubs, the better.
I like your beautiful tiptoe around the first paragraph may have been jarring, and I burst out laughing when I read it, because I was like, well, jarring is absolutely true, but
yeah, I think.
Go on.
Sorry. I think it came across that they were having a pop at fans and Twitter accounts, but I don't think they were. I think they were trying to kind of step away. They don't want to have a go directly at any
No.
certain publications. But I think the point they were trying to make was certain publications have maybe incorrectly indicated that the move was all but done. Shouldn't maybe have rushed to post
Yes.
that.
Yeah, you're right, and that's exactly true. But it's something that I've touched on in everyday life, in the fact that we're in a situation where, and I said it a couple of weeks ago, the Advertising Standards Authority are advertising on all radio stations at the moment, saying that every advert you hear needs to be checked for being legal, decent, honest, and truthful, which is not something that goes on in the Houses of Parliament or with day-to-day journalism in the red tops, and the standards should be right across the board for me. And that's where it was let down, because you know, and I do take your point, Joel, that EFL's statement was actually probably aimed at that, but it got my back up, because I was just thinking, well, you know, the thing that tickled me was that your track record on this is absolutely bleeding awful. So to come out and say that with and then follow it up with, well, trust us, we are going to do this properly. It's like, well, you know, it's the first time. It's not the first time you've said this, and you've got it wrong so many times that it's disappointing. But I get that. So you've started with us, Dale, this week, and I do say we again. You started with us, Dale, this week, and obviously there's a lot going on off the field as well as on. I presume you knew that.
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
So from our point of view, again, looking from the outside in, are you thinking, uh-oh? Are you thinking, well, you never know, somebody might come in and splash? Oh, by the way, I bought a lottery ticket on Tuesday night and I haven't checked it yet. It was Euro Millions. I could be 78 million up, but you know, I haven't checked it yet. So what do you think, Dale? From the outside in, you gave us the footballing. What about the club?
Listen, I think in relation to the stuff that's come out today, I think a lot of it stems back to COVID, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think, you know, having been involved in high level decision making back in COVID when I was up at Ross County, I think that every league in every world and every organisation is looking for not necessarily reform, but review how things are operating. I think when we were into COVID and every club's instantly put into a lockdown and football gets stopped, and you're dealing necessarily with rules back from 1929 or 1800s, when football was a completely different beast to what it is today. And I think again, this is a personal thing. I'm a great believer in being proactive rather than reactive. I think this is reactive, but I think it still sends out the right message in terms of not shying away from reviewing things and looking at things. And listen, it's going to please some people, it's not going to please other people. But I think in the grand scheme of things, we sit in a world now where you can't do right for doing wrong, you know, and that is in every facet of every business, let alone football, where, you know, whether you're a grocer, whether you're a petrol station, whether you're a football club, we live in a society now that we're so open to interpretation and opinion that trying to do the right thing is always going to come with a negative consequence. The day of doing the right, feeling like you're doing the right thing and it being the right thing is gone. But I have to say, in terms of Morecambe Football Club, my view on the football club is that this has been a fantastic opportunity for me personally. And you know, I first had conversations with Ben and Charlie 20 months ago. So it's almost 2 years ago. And my passion for this football club never changed. We have a fantastic stadium here. I believe we've got a fantastic manager of the football club. And I look at the way I've been welcomed in the past few days. I've seldom had a warmer welcome than I've had here. But the bit, and I touched on it in my press release, was the journey that this football club's been on in the last 25, 27 years under, you know, Jim Harvey, Sammy McElroy, Jim Bentley and Derek. I think you've got to sit back and acknowledge the journey. And whatever happens going forward, the period of transition at this football club has been incredible. Again, it was probably why it resonated with me, was the journey that Ross County had over the last 25 years was very, very similar. And And you know, when you come to football clubs like Morecambe, you know, when I walk in the door, is this the perfect finished article? No. But do you know what? It's probably never going to be. And I don't think any amount of investment, I don't think any amount of people can come in and do that. I think all you can do is strive to be the best you can be. And again, I related back to my point at the very beginning. We live in a world now where you're never going to complete it and tick the box, because we live in a society that dictates that you can't tick boxes anymore, and you can't be fully getting everything right all the time. You are going to frustrate people. You are going to say or do things that people might not like. But this football club, for me, I am delighted to be part of Morecambe Football Club. I'm excited for what lies ahead, and for me, I also have to probably dedicate a huge amount of gratitude to Matt Smith, who has been a tremendous anchor at this football club for a long period of time, who is a fantastic young man who's going to have a big career in this industry. But when you look at everything that you want to, the dots that you want to join up when you join a football club, for me, they all join up and come into Morecambe Football Club. And, you know, over the past couple of days, I've been trying to find a tracksuit that fits, but there was nothing better than standing in front of the mirror this morning, putting on the tracksuit top and seeing the badge in the mirror. I really, it gave me a big bit of excitement this morning, putting on the tracksuit for the first time and being able to come into your work feeling like you're part of something exciting that's moving forward.
If you think that's good, wait till you've had the chicken and ham pie.
Did that? That one stuck. That was a Tuesday night special.
Oh, go on then. What was that with peas and gravy?
No, I don't. I'm sorry that when Matt had his peas and gravy with his, that almost put me off altogether. Nah, mushy peas and gravy. No, thank you. I'll just have.
You're not. Yeah. Oh, come on. You're in the northwest of England. You're in Lancashire. You want to have something moist.
I was really disappointed that there was no just basic mince pies there. I was.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
a very
Scotch
plain.
pies.
I'm a very plain character.
Scotch. Oh yeah, you'll be having neeps and tatty pies next week.
Yeah, haggis, neeps, and tatty pies, or haggis pies, or venison pies. I'm all in for that.
We a few years ago, it's about 2007. Quite a few of us went up to Christie Park at Huntley.
Yeah.
And it was a game. It was a game when we were playing Rotherham at home. It's when John Newby got his hat trick, and 15 of us went up in a minibus and missed that game and went to see Huntley, who incidentally got dicked 6-0 by Keith. And I was laughing at that because I was like, one bloke beat him 6-0. It was called Keith.
Cammy Keith. Cammy Keith was his name.
Yeah, we went. Yeah, he got a double hat trick. So. But the one thing that was good was the pies at Huntley were absolutely excellent, absolutely beautiful.
Huntley's a great ground.
The local butcher turned up at the hotel, and it turned out the local butcher was the chairman, and there was 15 of us, and he found out we were coming, and he got us a haggis each, bless him. So we got a warm welcome there. But to this day, one guy who didn't want to go was our matchday announcer Mark, who said, "I'm not going because I'm doing the matchday announcing." Are you mad? We've got a home game. And he now says, "Hey, John Newby's hat trick, you missed that." And I'm like, yeah. It's one of them things. Anyway, so a little bit of a chat about you, Dale. So what were you doing before you were the same guy at Ross County? Did you start in non-league or what happened?
My association goes back 15 years at this point. Funnily enough, the kit man at Ross County now was the first manager I ever worked for. I was 13, 14 at the time. And I was filling the water bottles and helping with the kit and all that. And eventually, that was at Brora Rangers in the Highland League, so we used to play Huntly Keith. And eventually, I grew up through that. My experience, I knew very, very when I was young that I wanted to explore coaching, whether it was going to be sustainable or not. I didn't know. I went and did my badges and ended up going out to America and coaching for a period of time. Really enjoyed it. And then I came back to Brora and I was head of youth for 4.5, 5 years, leading the under-20 side and the under-17 team before I joined Ross County. I'll be honest, it didn't end great for me at Brora at the time. it was a change in culture at the football club at the time, and it was my local team. That was where I was brought up, was Brora, and personally it hit me hard, and I had no intention when I left Brora going back into football, but the chairman at Ross County, I knew, I'd gone back into work at his company full time, and he came through to the office one day, Dale, I think you should go and work at Ross County. Okay, chairman, let's do that. And then 4 years later, you're moving on, getting a handshake from him saying thank you and wishing you all the best at Morecambe. So, listen, I believe I've come through football probably the traditional way from the bottom up, but I'm really, really grateful for everyone that's played a part in my journey. I've worked with some fantastic people, worked with some phenomenal people at Ross County. Stephen Ferguson, the chief executive, who was obviously friends with Derek. He was Derek's assistant manager at Ross County. Stephen Ferguson was a huge source of support for me as a friend and a colleague. And I have to mention Stuart Kettlewell, who's just been named the Motherwell manager today, is a close personal friend, but he was brilliant for me at Brora and then into Ross County. And Malky Mackay, who is the manager now. Malky was absolutely tremendous for me from day one. And I'm just grateful for all the people that have helped shape my journey. And listen, this now comes on to the next stage. What does the shaping of the next period of time look like? And, I'm sure it'll be, there's a lot of experiences out there for me to have with this wonderful football club. And, I've got such a buzz in my belly to get going. I'm sitting here this morning going through stuff, and you just want to get your teeth sunk into it straight away. And it's an exciting time for the football club. I think, staying in League One last season was an incredible achievement. I think to stay in League One again this season will be an even bigger achievement. But this is a fantastic place to be. I think the northwest of England's a fantastic place to be if you're a football fan. So I think from my perspective, it's the right choice at the right time with absolutely the right club.
So presumably you've moved.
I have moved. My last game with Ross County was on Saturday last weekend against St Mirren and Paisley, and the car was packed up on the Friday night. And after the full-time whistle in Paisley, I made my emotional goodbyes at the stadium and drove straight down to Morecambe after the game and moved into my flat on Saturday night. I was just desperate to get down and get going. I think, a lot of people, when they leave one role and go into another, will take a week or 10 days off to sort themselves out. I just wanted to get going. People that know me know that I'm a wee bit of an emotional person at times, and I had some really, really strong ties at Ross County with people. And I think, again, to get my mind away from that, it was important to come in straight away. I do connect. I like to think I connect well with people. I like to think I'm a personable person. So that was really important for me as well, and also for my family. I've not got a partner or kids, but my family is a small family, but we're very, very close. And I think for them, rather than hanging about for a week and saying the long goodbyes just to get down the road and get going, was the best solution for us all.
Well, welcome to the club. I hope you're around and it's a successful move for you. And hopefully you'll be a useful addition to this podcast in the future, but also with your expertise in loaning us players for the podcast. Because we've got a good history. Derek's been on 3 times, although
where's the mute button at this point?
Yeah, Derek doesn't come on with the camera, but he watches the 3 of us, but then he stays in the darkened background and just talks to us, the Derek. But
if I knew Derek did that, I could have done that myself, so nobody had
yeah. The only
then
thing
we wouldn't have seen your tracksuit.
Yeah, we wouldn't have seen your tracksuit.
But you have to look at this dome.
Yeah, true enough. Yeah, but it's the same as me. People switch off when they see me, so I won't take it personally. Neither should you. But
listen, can I just say one thing? At this point, I know that people will at times maybe not understand what media and communications works like at a football club. I genuinely mean this when I say this. My door is always open. So, if any supporter, fan out there ever wants to have a conversation or a chat, in terms of what the media and communications side looks like, please feel free to chat the door. The one thing for me with football is is the fan sport. The club belongs to the fans. The club doesn't belong to anyone else. So for me, the most important thing in my role, and again I said this in my press release, was invariably when supporters feel closer to the football clubs have success. So it's imperative in my role, along with Matt and the other guys, that we try and bring supporters closer and closer through media and communications to their football club, to their club, that we can then all enjoy this journey together. So a lot of people would have seen my profiles on social media. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm accessible, and I think it's important that relationship's there as well.
Well, that's good. As long as you answer me WhatsApp messages on a Monday and Tuesday, I'm happy. It's obviously, it's good to have you on. We've had the previous incumbents of the position on, and they've both realised that this is a useful tool that the club can use. But also, we remain impartial. We are part of the Shrimps Trust, and the difficult questions, such as what's happening with Sarabjot Johal.
Who's that directed at?
That's at you.
I cannot comment any further on the process that is ongoing.
Good answer. But you knew I was going to ask, because I have
That is fair enough. I was expecting that. What I can say is you can tell from this podcast, anybody who's listening, why Dale was the man we wanted all along.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And that's not to diss Ryan. Ryan was amazing. Ryan
Ryan
was
was
amazing. He
amazing.
got a job from Man City. But
Yeah.
Dale was the man that Charlie and Ben wanted all along, and you can all see why.
Well, my next thing with Dale is we've either I can understand he's Scottish, mushy peas, maybe not, but bloody hell, get a bit of gravy on it. Come on. They're not moist.
I'll reserve judgment at this point in time.
That's fine.
Dale, where in Scotland are you actually from? Which bit?
So I'm originally from, I was born in Aberdeen, but I was brought up in a small village called Brora, which is about an hour north of Inverness. So a lot of people say there's not anything north of Inverness. There's actually 2.5 hours north of Inverness. But it's a fantastic part of the world. I love my home. You've got any golfers out there, you've got some stunning golf courses. Brora Golf Course is one of the best links golf courses in the UK. Royal Dornoch is there, which I think is now in the top 10 in the world. I would encourage anyone to go and visit Ross County. It's a wonderful family-friendly community club in the Premier League, and you've obviously got the North Coast 500 as well, which is the big tourist route, and it's a sensational part of the world. In my role at Ross County, I also did our community foundation as well for a year. And we cover an area the size of Belgium up there. So, we were doing holiday camps out in Stornoway, Orkney, Shetland, as well as being in Dingwall. So, for me, it's a stunning part of the world. We were lucky enough to take Sky Sports out to Stornoway with us last summer. And it was fabulous to see the Western Isles showcased in that. But I would encourage anyone that if you're looking for a weekend break, if you're looking for maybe a week away staycation as they call it now, I just still call it a holiday. Try the north of Scotland because it's a fabulous part of the world.
Done it. I've done the North Coast 500 and the Northeast 250 as well, which was around all the Speyside distilleries.
Beautiful part of the world.
I don't drink whiskey, but my missus does. So you can see who was
Speyside whiskies are the best. Speyside whiskies are, in my humble opinion, the best.
Sally says the same thing. She loves the sort of honey and the sweetness of them. But
yeah,
and just as a matter of interest, Dale has introduced. There are up until today there were 3 official measurements: size of a double-decker bus, size of a football pitch, size of Wales. He's brought in size of Belgium. I like that. That's a good one. I'm not sure how big.
He also talked about size of tracksuits as well.
I'm now a Mark F, a size up from a Marquee.
Yes, round of applause. Right, well, we could only finish up. Is there any trust business there, Joel?
Sorry, just a minute. There were some quite loud Man United fans next door. I've sent a message into the chat. I've received a rude message back.
I'll take that as a no.
But obviously, we did have the quiz on Saturday, which we had a few people coming down to, and well done to Chap Shrimps and friends, who picked up the the trophy in a closely fought contest. So well done to them. Just again, I think we are looking to organise something on Good Friday. That's starting to come together now. So there'll be more details on social media once that's all up and running. But yeah, that's all for this week.
Good effort. Well, thank you, Joel. Thank you, James. Good luck, Dale. There's I'm sat here thinking, what can possibly go wrong? Lancashire Derby at Fleetwood, followed by Bolton at home the Saturday after and a 12:30 kickoff. What can possibly go wrong? So thanks for listening. This has been ShrimpNet 20-something. I can't remember this season. It's 25,
27, I think it might be now.
27. Oh, there you go. See, I forget. I should put a little note on my notes, shouldn't I, say what number it is? But there you go. Thanks for listening. You can contact Dale anytime you want because the door's always open. Just take him a pie, but don't put peas and gravy on it. James, thank you very much. Lovely to have you back. And I shall now call it Wastwater, not what. I obviously sound too posh. Thank you. Yeah, beautiful that. You didn't move the globe. It's still on South America. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you all next week when we'll be discussing what happened against Fleetwood. I'm not giving a tip because I am useless. Good night.